some giants how they use scraping.
Customers I got from Gym Launch, I got somebody to pay a VA in the Philippines to scrape CrossFit's database and then send me the list of emails. And I had 80 leads from people who had opted in.
And when you hear this, of course, you think it's a huge mountain. Yet, the path is right there for you to follow. And it's quite simple as well. In 2 classes, we will teach you how you can master web scraping with a no-code tool and a few CSS principles. And get new superpowers to scrape data from anywhere in the web with 0 coding involved and completely by yourself. And get actionable data to grow your business. So if you want to learn web scraping, we will teach a masterclass led by Danil, one of our scraping experts in Bardeen, where we will go into the deep dive of how you can make the best out of Bardeen Scraper. I hope to see you there, and I'll leave some details on the description. All right, welcome everyone to our Bardeen Masterclass. I am so excited to see so many people joining in, especially on a very short notice. We planned the event like 1 week ago, and we have more than 200 registered folks. We have people joining in from everywhere in the world, from Berlin, from Colombia, Mexico. This is pretty awesome for our second Bardeen Masterclass. So today we're going to be diving into Bardeen advanced scraping techniques. So if you're familiar to Bardeen, you probably know already our scraper. And you know that there's some point where you have to learn a bit of those advanced techniques for you to make the best out of it. So we're really excited to touch this topic that we haven't touched too much in our tutorials. And we are so glad to introduce here 2 of our leading engineers that are Manuel and Danil. And Manuel, he's joining us. Where are you joining us today, Manuel?
Oh, I'm joining from Burgas, Bulgaria. Hey there.
That's pretty awesome. So let me tell you the story. Manuel, he's one of the founding members of Bardeen. He created the scraper almost from scratch. He has a background of creating incredible products on web scrapers and Chrome extensions, and he has seen this product evolve from the scratch. So we're really happy to have you here. He is also the MVP inside our community, helping so many users. And today he's going to be giving us some masterclass, some amazing wisdom on how you can use some coding principles inside Bardeen. Something I really appreciate about Manuel is that even though he's a really advanced engineer, he knows how to teach coding for anyone, even no coders. So I'm really excited about this. Thank you, Manuel. And we also have Danil here. Danil, where are you connecting from?
I'm connecting from the Yerevan, Armenia. Yeah, hey folks. It's nice to share some, teach you to build some automation with scraping.
Awesome. So Danny here, he is also in the scraper team. He's one of our scraper engineers, and he has helped so many people inside our community. He creates so many of the scraper models that you see inside your apps. He has created so many playbooks, and he is also a great MVP. He's the type of person that when somebody needs help on a scraper, he's willing to just go all the way and help that user out and get some of those selectors for him. We have some questions here on the audience that we're going to be able to stare, and we will be able to also answer them at the end at the Q&A. So we want to hear it from you, folks. Where are you connecting from? So tell us in the comments if you're connecting from Colombia, from Canada, from the US, and also what is something you would like to learn in this session? What is kind of your expectations? All right, we have people from Colombia. We have tons of questions, and we have a question here on the recording. So yes, we do record this. You will find an immediate recording on YouTube after this, and we'll also take these sessions through a bit of a editing process and upload them again into YouTube. But you should be able to access this afterwards. Okay, we have people from Bali. That's pretty awesome. Germany, Mexico. All right, so I think we're ready to get started. And before we do that, we want to share with you some exclusive access to our slides, right? This doesn't happen very often, but we want you to be able to follow our slides because we have some links into there, and you should be able to see the links. So we're going to share the slides here on the comments, and you can open them and you can follow the resource, the links, even nice cheat sheet that we have prepared for you. So let's get started. All right, so our goal in this session is to equip you with the knowledge and basic skills for you to get started into this advanced scraping techniques, into this way that you can build powerful and reliable scrapers with Bardeen. So in this session, we're going to be diving into the Bardeen scraper in a nutshell, some of our showcase and existing scrapers, and how the Bardeen scraper work. We will get information from our leading engineers on how exactly does a Bardeen scraper work, like how does it get the data from the web, some of the limitations you might find, and also how you can solve some of those limitations and common issues that you might get when scraping with Bardeen. We will be running some live examples. So we will, in the point of this presentation, we will ask you to help us select which website we want to scrape. And we have some really fun options. So make sure to stick around so you will be able to witness how we will build a scraper live with you. We will also have some learning resources so you can continue your learn curve, and we will have a CSS cheat sheet that you will be able to access in the slides that we just shared on the comments. Additionally, at the end, we will have some special offers for the participants of this event and maybe a competition. You gotta stick around to find out. So the first thing we want to dive into is basically what to expect from this session, right? If you're hopping into this session, we are assuming that you're already a Bardeen user, or at least you have heard about our scraper, you have seen it work. And in this session, here's what we want to teach you is a bit about the science behind Bardeen scraper and understand when you can use one of our existing scrapers versus when you can build your own. And if you build your own, what are those complications that you might run into? And what are those advanced practices and kind of solutions that you can do in those cases? How can you troubleshoot when your scraper doesn't work? And how can you get some knowledge of those basic principles of coding and CSS and HTML, basic principles that will help you get started into that advanced techniques and improving your scrapers. We will also witness a live example from Danny on building a scraper live. And the idea of this session is for you to have an initial foundation of advanced scraping. Remember, we will have 2 sessions. This is the first one. And this session, we want to overview and get into the initial steps of advanced scraping. And in the second one, we will get into much more deeper topics and a bit more of a deep dive on CSS and some other topics. So let's start with the current Bardeen scraper and the scraper that we already know and love so much. So the purpose of the Bardeen scraper is that you are able to extract or monitor data from websites directly from your browser in a few minutes, and even connect it to your apps directly on a really quick, intuitive platform. So you should be able to build a scraper like this one and select the data just by clicking the inputs, getting a text, getting an image, getting a link, getting even metadata that is not visible on the page, like the page link, the description, and so much more. This is a demo from today's event, Luma link, on how you could be able to scrape that Luma link and get the data from that single page. So if you have built a scraper before, please drop a wave, drop a comment on whatever platform you're connecting from, so we can know that you're already familiar to the scraper. Now, let's see the scraper in a nutshell. So this is particularly useful if you're not that familiar to the scraper or you're not aware of everything that it can do. So this is a quick dive through, like 2-minute dive through into the scraper. So the scraper is able to get data from single page profiles like LinkedIn and connect it into your apps like Notion. It is able to enrich data from URLs with the scraper. So if you have a list of URLs that you want to scrape, you should be able to enrich all of those URLs with scraped models. So you can also scrape data from not only a single link like we showed you, but also if you have a list of links, you can scrape that in the background, go for a coffee, and when you come back, you will have all your data scraped. You can monitor data changes on a page. So if you're trying to check for financial data, or if you want to check for if somebody changes their LinkedIn title, things like this, you can be able to monitor with a scraper. And you can also make even more complex things like making deep scraping flows. By this, I mean that if you scrape a list of URLs and then you want to get into each URL and get data from each profile from that list, for instance, if you're scraping a LinkedIn search and you get into each profile and scrape data from each profile, that is a deep scraper. So all of these are concepts that you will learn with the Bardeen kind of regular learn curve. We have scraper tutorials for this, and we have also a YouTube channel that will walk you through some of the basic fundamentals. The advantages of the Bardeen scraper, just seeing it in a nutshell, is that it is quick to build a scraper. It is relatively very fast to learn how to do it, and you can play around with it relatively fast just by going into downloading Bardeen, creating a scraper template, and selecting things that you want from the page. You will be able to get things like links, text, images. You can click around on the website. You can get data from inputs, page titles, metadata, even the timestamp that you're scraping. And the way it works is that you create kind of this scraper template, and you create a scraper template that you should be able to use inside your Bardeen automations. So scraper templates, they can be either individual pages that you, for instance, scrape a LinkedIn profile, or you can create a scraper template of a list when you want to scrape a LinkedIn search list. So you can create either of those, and those scraper templates you're able to plug into your Bardeen automations. And that's what makes it really powerful also compared to other apps, is that you can have a scraper inside an automation. So you can scrape data from active tab, for instance, if you're over a specific website, and then connect it into, for instance, OpenAI to analyze that data with artificial intelligence. You can connect it into Notion to save that information. You can connect it into your CRM. For instance, if you're trying to get a LinkedIn profile and save it into HubSpot. So you can also use the action of scraping multiple URLs in the background and trigger when website data changes. So these are like blocks inside your builder that you can use the scraper on. Now, even if you're a Bardeen beginner, here's some initial steps to get started, because this is going to get into some more advanced topics really soon. So if you're just getting started with the Bardeen scraper, I do recommend you to go into our scraper blog tutorial, and we have a scraper playlist in YouTube that is really recommended for you. We're going to try to share the links here, but anyway, we're sharing the slide presentation so you can follow up with these links. Okay, let's continue. All right, so now we dived into the scraper in 2 minutes. That's quite a lot of information, but here's the thing. You might not even need to build your own scraper. And that's the most impressive thing, is that we have a team of engineers and we have a beautiful community that helps us create scrapers. And we have more than 100 scrapers from very popular websites like Indeed, Instagram, LinkedIn, Amazon, Twitter, that you can already use inside your Bardeen automations. So even if you're not familiar with how you can build a Bardeen scraper, you can already use our scrapers for building your own automation. So if you want to use a scraper for Google or Google Maps, it's very simple for you to find them. You can go to bardeen.ai/scrapers. I'm going to share it in the comments, and you will be able to browse among all of these websites and build your own automation with the scraper. And we're going to see exactly how you can do that, and how you can, for instance, go into a website and leverage one of our existing scrapers and maybe even edit it if you need to. So let's go into the next slide. And now I want to get Manuel into the stage, because I want to ask you, okay, Manuel, you've been leading this product for quite a while. Can you walk us through, like, how exactly does Bardeen work? Like, how does this magic work when I click something and then it suddenly gets the information or the image? Can you walk us through a bit of the science behind that?
Sure, absolutely. Would love to. Thank you so much, Ivan, for an amazing introduction. So yeah, I'll start sharing my screen. And yeah, I'll try to showcase you Bardeen Scraper and also try explaining what is happening in the background. In the Bardeen, as you may see, we have this Scraper tab, which provide you quick access into our scraper tool. And we're already providing a ready scraper model, as Ivan has mentioned. So whenever you see a scraper model that is marked by Bardeen, you can use it. It's constantly being maintained, updated, and it will get the data for you from this page. For example, if I'll pick this scraper model and execute it on this Twitter page, I should get back the results. And besides of using the existing scraper models, as already Ivan has mentioned, you can extend it and build on top of it. So here is how the ready scraper model looks like. As you can see, we have already pinpointed a few elements on the page. And sometimes, for example, in this case, as you can see, we didn't pick up the followers count, so we can add it to it. Let's click on it, get the text. Oh, let's get also the link. I'll call it followers number and followers. Here we go. So now we should be able to get also the followers. In order to understand what happens while Bardeen picks the element, you also need to understand some basics of how the websites are built. And for that, we have another session here. But yeah.
Manuel, and when you select those fields, what exactly happens behind the scenes? Like, you select the fields, and how does Bardeen get that information from the current page?
Yeah. So what is happening in the background? Bardeen analyzes the structure of the page. It finds a specific element you clicked and generate a path to that page, to that element. So you can see that path if you click on these 3 dots next to the field and click on Edit. Here we have the Show Advanced section, which will show you how exactly that path looks like.
Wow. Okay, so it automatically generates. What are these? Are these CSS selectors, or how? Yeah, can you walk us through that?
Precisely. Yes, those are CSS selectors. And using the CSS selector is how we're finding elements on the page. And also, they also can be the cause of some false positives. You sometimes may have noticed when using Bardeen, for example, when you're trying to pick an element, but unexpectedly you're getting some other element.
Yeah, we will dive into those examples in a second. And I want to ask you, like, Manuel, after creating this product for a while, you've also tried so many other scrapers. Can you walk us through, like, what makes Bardeen Scraper so powerful? Like, what are the advantages of this?
Right. I would say, like, every tool out there has its pros and cons. Bardeen has a huge advantage of running inside of your browser as an extension, meaning it has access to all your browsing session right away. I mean, you're not operating, you're not sharing any of your session information or login information. You can get, you can scrape data from the website you're already logged in. It's very natural, and yeah, with that it unblocks a lot of possibilities, and it allows like scraping basically every website on the web.
Wow. I have noticed that since you have Bardeen directly from your browser, not only is it faster to like build your own scrapers compared to many other platforms, but it also reduces the risk from scraping, because it acts like you were actually like going into the website and scraping. Is that accurate?
Precisely. Yeah, it's a quite natural flow. So we're with the scraping, you're basically, it's similar as copy pasting to some other direction, but it's just so much faster.
Awesome. Some other Bardeen scraper advantages is how it fits with the entire Bardeen ecosystem, because you get the scrape data from a website, and then you are able to connect it with your apps. We have more than 40 integrations of popular apps like HubSpot, Notion, Google Sheets, and you should be able to connect that scrape data and get it into your apps directly, maybe even analyze it with AI. And that is another very powerful advantage, is that you can, for instance, get a list of information and then ask OpenAI to, hey, can you analyze this? Or can you send a Slack message summary for this? And so more. So another advantage, I think, is building deep scrapers that do you know what are, like, can you walk through the concept of deep scraping just in a few words?
Sure. We're currently observing something that we call like single page scraper creation flow. But Bardeen also, besides of being able to extract data from actual single page or single profile, we can extract also data from the list of elements. Let's say you can get the data from the Twitter thread, Twitter search, LinkedIn search, and you can afterwards combine those both scraper types together. For example, you can get list of the tweets and use this scraper that scrapes each page and run it. So it will navigate to every thread, every single post in the Twitter, and scrape it.
So an example of deep scraping here, for instance, is that you have following the number of, like, the link for the followers, right? So if you get that link, so you can build another scraper that opens that link and then scrapes all the followers from that link. So that is
Absolutely.
kind of an advantage of Bardeen Scraper too. So okay, and now let's get into the bad, not only the good. I want to ask you, like, I have been a Bardeen user even before I used Bardeen, and since then I noticed that sometimes you try to scrape data and you don't get it as expected, and that is very common. That a user comes in and they ask us like, "Hey, I made a scraper template, but I'm not getting the field every time, or like I'm not getting it consistently." So maybe you can walk us through why can that happen, and maybe a couple examples.
Sure, absolutely. Very well noted. Yeah, there is always some problems when you're trying to operate in the web. And as mentioned, that Bardeen, when you're picking element with Bardeen, it basically generates a path to element. And in this case, as you can see, I'm on the Facebook page, and I'll try to get the URLs, let's say, from the header. Let's go into the scraper, and we'll observe basically that example of what you just mentioned, Ivan. So here, let's get the URLs of these pages. So I would like to get drills. Let's get photos. Let's do reviews. Now,
So I see you're trying to get the tabs from Facebook, like the links
exactly.
for each tab. Okay. So
Yeah.
let's see. Like I want you guys for the example to see how the layout in this page has this specific tabs. So when you scrape it, you get the links, right? You get the links for, and it's
Right.
you build the
Let me
scraper
run it
based
again.
on. Yeah, let's run it again.
Yeah, I've got reels, I've got photos and reviews. Yeah.
Awesome. So now what happens if I run it on maybe another page?
Right.
If I build a scraper on that one?
Yes. So now we're on Lonely Planet Facebook page. And if I run this scraper model on here, you might notice that Reels URL picked up followers, reviews picked up mentions, and yeah, photos is the ones that you got correct.
Okay.
So yeah, this is interesting because Lonely Planet does not have the Reels tab. And this is the reason.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, so to wrap up, the reason the scraper didn't work, like it did work when you build it on Bardeen Facebook page, but it didn't work on Lonely Planet because the layout changes, right? So in this case, like in the first one, you try to get the real URL, and then when you scrape it here on Lonely Planet, you got the followers because it's located in the same place. So that is kind of an example of how you would actually get like the unexpected information, and that's why sometimes you build for, a scraper, and when you run it on other pages that are different, then you might get unexpected results. Now, don't worry, we're going to dive into how we can solve this in a second. So before that, I want to share an example here, and I want to get it from the audience and see if you're paying attention. So we're going to see this example here for a LinkedIn job post. Mabel, if you can maybe open it so we can see it in a second. But let's see these examples. So we have, let's say you're trying to scrape a LinkedIn job post, and you want to get this field that is on blue. That is the kind of, I want to get the volunteer associate, like the type of job and how senior it is. I want to scrape that field. Now, there's two jobs, right? There's the first one and the second one. I'm going to build the scraper for the first one. Now, what can go wrong? Can anyone in the comments tell us like what can go wrong in this case? Let's see if anyone wants to share. Anyone spots the issue of what can go wrong in this case? Scrape 2 times the info, returns different results. Okay, good job, Jamie. So basically that's it. So okay, we have Anna here. The first is different than the second one. Yeah, exactly. So in this case, you might intuitively, with Bardeen's natural scraper, you go and get the volunteer associate, and you expect that in every time you run the job scraper, every time you're going to get that specific field, like the seniority. And then you run this on many links, and out of a sudden you start getting like mixed results, like, oh, why am I getting the salary instead of the senior? And like, why am I getting the, the salary here? And the same could happen if you're trying to get the volunteers not paid. That is a good one. So the same can happen if you're trying to scrape the salaries, and one job might have the salary and some others don't. So that's what we have to understand, is that Bardeen does a good job with the natural scraper, but there's cases where you have to refine it. Can you walk us through maybe this example on LinkedIn jobs, Manuel?
Sure, absolutely. It's pretty much similar to the example we just observed with Facebook. And yeah, in this case, as you may notice, and yeah, amazing job, yeah, for noticing the differences in between the layouts. So yeah, as you can see, like a volunteer associate in this case, this field and this field are they are same. As you can see, they're like not necessarily a seniority indication, but they are basically providing some overview regarding seniority. It also provides overview of the salary, so it provides more information. Some listings may have that information about like the seniority and all the salary, and the other one may miss it. And it's similar with this skill section here. As you can see, it has this job listing has a skill section, and this one don't. And if you will build a scraper who would try to get this element, it may not be able to get it here, which is expected result.
So Manuel, in this case, in theory, how would you be able to solve it? Like, so the next time I want to get the volunteer/associate and get that like seniority for all jobs, how can I solve it?
Right.
Just for this example.
Right. For this example, in order to do that, you would, unfortunately, there is a need of understanding of bit of basic engineering. Sorry for that. So as mentioned, there are false positives, and the way Scraper works, it basically analyzes the structure of the page. And in this case, in order to solve this issue, you need to first understand how the page looks like. And to understand that, you need to go into this tool, which is called Inspector on the browser. You can right click on the element, click on inspect, and you can see the page structure here. And this is what Bardeen Scraper uses to find this specific element.
Okay, so in a way, like as we learned from you recently, is that Bardeen automatically generates like the selectors, like the CSS selectors, and it maps the specific place in the code where it should get that information. Now, because the layout changes, in this case, you have to kind of understand how that layout looks like and how that HTML works, so you can refine the selector, right? So you can actually refine the field and get specifically that field that you want every time. So the next time, and what you need to do here is that you will need to create a CSS selector and kind of modify it. So the next time you run it, you will get volunteer associate, even if there's a salary right next to it. So that's what we're going to dive into. And that's kind of the purpose of these sessions, is to equip you with the tools for you to be able to solve these cases that come up pretty often. Like once in a while, when you're like scraping things, something might not go as expected. And that's why we have to learn some of the fundamentals. Now, we've seen this case. Manuel, can you share us, let's be honest, what are some other limitations and common problems that you can run into with Bardeen Scraper?
Right. So yes, there are some, as we mentioned, the changes in the layout is one of the biggest problems, and there are multiple reasons why that can happen. It can be like a change in the website design. You might have a different website version depending on your location, meaning you might be creating a scraper for German version of the website, but then you're running it on the Spanish version, and some unexpected results may appear. In general, every small change on the page may affect it. So if you master the building blocks of the page, you will be able to create such a strong scraper model that will last much more longer. And it will be very reliable for your use cases.
Yeah. And let me tell you that for 98% of the cases, there's usually a solution. like if something doesn't work for the scrapers, usually you have to understand what is wrong with that case, find the selectors, and you'll be likely to be able to solve it. But there's also some limitations. There's some cases that are simply not possible. For instance, if you're trying to get data from an iframe, for instance, if you have an embedded map inside a website, the scraper is not capable of getting into that embedded website that is an iframe and try to get that information. There's other limitations like the cloud scraping that is a work in progress. So right now you can run a scraper in the background, and you can go for a coffee. You can let your computer on, and it'll scrape the data, but you cannot have it run while you're sleeping or when you have your computer off. This is something that we're working on right now, and soon we might have some updates. So that is an interesting space. And as well, there's some technical limitations that you might find, but most of these problems, they have solutions. And the way we can solve it, I want to ask you, Manuel, like, what is the best way to solve it?
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for mentioning all the hard technical limitations. That was very helpful. But yeah, let's try diving into a session when we can learn how to solve the issues that are solvable within like learning the structure of the page. And
okay, so in this section, so everybody's contextualized, we're gonna get some basic HTML and CSS knowledge from Manuel. So even if this is technical and a bit, you will see code, okay? But don't worry, we're trying our best to make it as intuitive as possible, because we know that our audience are mostly no coders. So let's get started, and I want you guys to especially realize that this is worth learning, because you will unlock the full potential of the scraper. You will, as you use the Bardeen scraper, you will always get that limitation on, I am getting most of the data, but there's some fields that I cannot get. So this will help you unlock the full potential with a moderate learning curve. And you will also be able to solve your own scraping problems, and maybe even other users' scraping problems. This is a monetizable skill to actually build a scraper. You can get leads, you can get data, you can even build a business upon this. So this is kind of our call to action to bear with us, and let's learn some of HTML and CSS. Okay, remember, I'll let you take the stage.
Amazing, thanks. So yeah. Regarding the HTML, like as mentioned, it's like a building block of every website. So if you can see here, like every page consists of this code, which may look scary, but when we are break it down into the smaller pieces, it might be more understandable what they represent. So here is like super simple example of just few elements that has some data in it. And here we have something that is called CSS selector. So HTML, as mentioned, is a building block of the structure of the page, and CSS is for styling. So here, it's basically same what you see in the website. So we have a block that is called this guy here is called a tag, and yeah, so we'll call them tag. So our div is a tag, span is a tag, and what we are doing, we will try to get this pick me text from here, and there are some rules how CSS is able to locate those elements. And in this case, what we are writing here, we are saying like pick the first div and pick the spanning side of it. As you can see, it basically picks the span, and you can see here that skip me is green. But in order to make the pick me green, we basically need to change this to 2, because we are now picking the second div. But if website changes, and now there is another block that's called skip me, we might have this false positive. So there are multiple ways how you can approach this. For example, instead of picking the number here, we can say last type. And here, we are now picking the pick me. And how
So
many?
what I see is that on the right, you're building kind of that selector, right? To pick the
Exactly.
Okay, so you like div last of type. You're telling it, I want you to go into that the last
Div.
span, the last div, and then get into the span and give me the pick me, right? So
right.
Okay, so in theory, if I were to go into Bardeen and then get that selector, it should get me the pygmy, and that is the way it located, right?
Precisely, yeah.
Okay.
And this is basically exactly that simulations that we have. So let me quickly drive into the cheat sheet section, because we have a couple of more handy examples here. So there are like changes. Pages are dynamic and they may change all the time. And you can access all of these basic markups in our presentations. So you can also play around later on to boost your skills. We will also provide all the helpful information that will help you get started with CSS and building those CSS rules. And as you may see, the elements does also have some additional information like ID, classes, and etc. So IDs and classes are called attributes. You can find many attributes and you can use them to pick those elements. There is a special, let me first show you one detail here. So let's say I'm using the ID to locate the element. And in order to use the ID, you're using a current sign, like hash sign, and following with ID. This way you can select the ID. It's a notation which, the IDs and classes are the exceptions. The other ones are more simpler. So this will pick the ID. But if the layout changes and ID changes as well, we won't be able to pick that element anymore. And maybe in that case, we need to use some other elements on the page to locate it. It can be classes, as in this case. Sometimes developer leaves some hints inside of the page because the layout is so complex that they are not being able to make sense of it. And you sometimes may see something like this. You can use,
so
yeah.
Just to recap until now. So inside HTMLs, inside the inspect tab of websites, you should be able to see like the CSS that is like formatting for those texts, for those components on the web. And
exactly.
For those components, they have attributes, they have classes, they have labels, and you can use those labels for you to actually locate that item. So that is useful if, for instance, in this example, you have this pick me text, and let's say the page has a complex layout and it changes a lot. What you can do is locate the CSS selector that is basically telling it like, hey, find the item that has this ID called what is it?
Change the layout. We can
change layout, for instance, or like pygmy, exactly. So like find the item that has this ID and get me that text. So that way that's a more reliable way to extract the information than just the automatic selector, right?
Right.
Awesome. Do you have any other examples, or what are some quick initial ways that people can start practicing here?
Why don't we fix, for example, that Facebook issue we just observed? What do you think of? Let's try, for example, solve this issue. And so first, audience can see how they can use the knowledge. And then we will dive into more details where they can learn more. So here, as you can see, we're trying to pick this real element. Let me open the scraper itself. And now we'll create same selector, but we will boost it. Let's say we're going to the reels. Oh. Let's see what kind of selectors Bardeen has generated. Bardeen uses various techniques to find this element and they generate multiple selectors, but sometimes it doesn't work. It works reliably on many websites, but sometimes on websites like this, it's really hard to grasp and find the right rules that you can use. But what we can use here is a URL itself.
Zoom in a little bit so everyone can see.
Oh, sure.
Awesome.
Sorry. And yeah, what I'm doing here, I'm basically locating that Reels element on the page and trying to figure out what can I use here to improve it. And I see that it's a tag that is called A, which stands for anchor, and it usually links to another page. And usually all the anchors has URL itself. So I find it in this href attribute, and I can use this Reels tab to always pick the right one. So in order to fix this case, what I will do, I'll remove all these auto-generated selectors.
Okay, so until now, you found that there's this attribute, like this href. Is that called an attribute, right?
Right.
Okay, so this href attribute that has a URL that it's the same pattern every time. That is going to be facebook.com/reels, right? Or exactly. Is it the reels? No, this segment that is the reels tab. That is going to be a pattern in all the Facebook pages. So from there, you're going to build the selector. Like you're going to tell it to find that href, right?
Exactly. So
okay, so what would this selector do?
Yeah. So curly brackets means that you are looking for the attribute and you're writing the name of the attribute. In this case, it's href, and you're doing equal. But as you may notice, it doesn't equal Reels tab, but it rather has HTTPS, and Bardeen AI/Reels tab, but we don't care about all of the other details. And there are some small tricks that we will also provide you some references soon, so you can also learn them. So star sign means I'm looking for the href attribute that contains the text inside. In this case, Reels tab. So if I hit save, now I can see that it's picking the right element. If I save the template, and move to the Lonely Planet page, executing it here. Oh, and it didn't work. Let's see why. Because it doesn't have Reels. If you remember last time, we did same example, but we picked the reals. And it was the false positive. So we picked the followers because it was like a false positive. And now when we're executing it on this page, we're no more picking the wrong element. We can do same for every other element. And we can also find those models here. And try do the change for every other field, if you like. But as you can see now, we're no more picking the wrong element. For example, I think the other one was reviews, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this one was the one that we got wrong. And as you may notice, it's possible to edit existing scraper models. So whenever you're building, you don't need to build every time from scratch, but you can find the model in the Scrapers tab and update it. Now
wow. That is an interesting hack. So even if you don't have that selector, like even if you don't have the perfect selectors for the scraper you build yourself, what you can do, like if you're building a Facebook scraper in this case, is you can go to the Bardeen scraper selector, the existing one, and you can check their selector just by clicking on the edit and then seeing the selectors, and you can reuse those. And that's a way that if you're blocked somehow, you can check if Bardeen already has a scraper for that, and you can just copy those selectors. That is a kind of a pro hack there. All right, so I think we dived into the Facebook example, but now we want to go into some follow-up examples with Danil. But before that, Manvel, I think you prepared a bit of a cheat sheet. Maybe you can walk us through that?
Sure, absolutely. Let me stop sharing my screen. So I'll just go into the spreadsheet. Yeah, let me see. Right, exactly. So
what can we find here?
Yeah, here you can find some overall information about what is attribute, what is classes, and the selectors to them. If you click on the links, for example, there is a link that calls selectors, you will find more information about how to build selectors, how they're different from each other, because there's tons of information how they're different. And yeah, as you can see, they're like combinators. So combinators are a bit a complex topic. I mean, you can find relevant elements using combinators, meaning you do not need always find nested element, but also ones that are next to each other, something called sibling selector. So you can combine multiple selector with this sibling combinator. And this way you can also pick the element that is not nested inside the one, but it's the next one. There are a lot of pseudo class. We already played around with some of those. For example, with the last of type, first of type, and ends of type. Those are the ones that you might find handy, but there are tons of them. And if you learn more about various selector combinators and pseudo classes, you can pinpoint and pick almost any element on the page.
Awesome. So this just to recap here, this cheat sheet, these selectors, they're like the most common selectors that you might run into when building a Bardeen, like when refining a Bardeen scraper. So for instance, if you're, and you can use these and you can play with these when you're building your own scrapers. So for instance, if you have a list and you want to get every time the last item, you can use those classes of last of item, or like item number 1 or like item number 5. So you're very specific on what part do you want Bardeen to extract. Is there any quick hacks or like ways that Bardeen users can play? Any tricks?
Yeah, sure. We will provide some resources in the end of the slide so they can learn more and play around. I would suggest for basic, they can also set up similar environment that we just set and try to play around picking elements in that tool. For example, in CodePen I use, but they can use any other tool and just play around, try to picking some elements. I will also suggest one thing they can also do. For example, if let me share my screen quickly. Oh, yeah, I do. So if you can share my screen. Yes, thanks so much. And one thing that users can also do, and is very handy, they can practice their selectors in this inspector tool. Control F or Command F inside of the inspector tool should open this field where they can play around with various selectors and see whether they are picking the right element on the page. So they do not need actually necessarily set up the whole environment, but they can play on the actual page. And
that is kind of a safer way and quicker way to do it than, like, first do it on the inspector, play with your CSS selector, make sure that they're getting what you need to get, and then you can take that, copy it, and put it into Bardeen in that advanced tab. When you edit a field inside Bardeen, you can copy and paste that selector and make sure that it gets that information. So so the kind of the workflow, just to recap, if you run into an issue like with a field that is not working, then you have to build like a reliable scraper, a reliable selector, sorry. And you can do this by using these basic principles. We have even here added that mentioned that you can even ask ChatGPT to get you a selector. That might be an interesting strategy if you paste the snippet of the code of that section and ask ChatGPT, like, find me the selector for this text that I'm trying to look up. So basically, you get that selector, and then you go into Bardeen Scraper and you edit that field. So you get a refined scraper, and the next time you run it, then it should work properly. I think you're gonna show us that flow.
Yes, you need to find the scraper model in the tab. This is the way I did it just a second ago. Hover the edit button, and yeah, clicking on it, you will be able to edit your existing scraper model. And in order to change the selector, you're clicking on these 3 dots next to the field that you're interested in, or you can access it through this action window right away. Yeah, let's do it this way. Edit operation, show advanced options. And here you can either have multiple selectors if you like, or just paste the ones that you are interested in.
Awesome. All right, great walkthrough, Manuel. Thank you so much. Finally, I think you had some. We're running just a small pause here. We're running a bit after time, so if you still can, if you can still stay, we're gonna be seeing a live example from Danny. We're sorry that this ran a bit after time, but I think this is a great kind of masterclass that we will also be able to record and just get some knowledge for our users. So now, what we're going to do is we're going to see a live example. And if you're still around, help us decide what should we scrape. Okay, let's go into next one. So thank you, Manuel. And we're going to introduce here Danny. And Danny's going to help us here scrape one of these 3 websites. So we have 3 very exciting options. And I want people in the comments to choose. So help us choose what should we scrape today. So we have a live example of how this looks like and how this process looks like. So we have LinkedIn company home. So getting data from a LinkedIn company, maybe getting their details, their about. That is one option. Second one, TripAdvisor attraction page. That's another option. Or the third one is there's an AI for that. I think for me, it's pretty interesting. The third one, because that is an AI directory, the biggest AI directory out there, and you can like get data from maybe AI tools that are out there. So we have some votes for A. We have C. We have pick the hardest one. Damn, that's intense.
Yeah, all the votes for a LinkedIn company.
All right. We have one for B. We have a couple for C.
Yeah. So, so here's the company.
One second. Let's see if it turns around. Let's give it 20 more seconds.
Okay.
One, 2, 3, 4, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. So we have a winner. We have A, got more votes. So let's go with the LinkedIn company. We're gonna get a LinkedIn company scraper set up here. So I'll let you take over, Danny.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, and thank you, Manuel, for a brief overview what is HTML and how to use CSS in order to get some elements on the page. And here we would make completely new model of LinkedIn company homepage. Here we got the Bardeen page. And let me open the developer tools. This way we can observe the layout. And yeah, first thing to get is a company name.
Can I just say that it looks so meta that there's the event running in the background?
Yeah, it's super. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Yeah, so
yeah, it's quite funny. Okay, let's get into it.
Yeah, let me increase this thing. So the way we can extract this title is to, well, there are two easy ways. The first one is to access by the h1 tag, which is like a common practice for like a lot of websites when there's a huge like a title of the page, right? Title of the product, the price of the product. They are usually headers. H1 stands for header 1. But let's this time practice a bit with the classes and attributes. So because there is a kind of safer way to get this title, and I am going to use class value. You see, there is a summary title value of this attribute of this class, and we can make a new model. Let me close this guy, create a new scraper model, right? Single page. And by the way, we are going to actually make this model and publish it so it would be accessible for everyone who uses Bardeen. So yeah, it's kind of like a cool demonstration of how models are getting created. So let's call this LinkedIn company homepage, right? And set the prefix as by Bardeen. So let's start building. I need to open the developer tools again. So I was about to get the page title, right? Bardeen. We can call it like a company name, right? And let's edit the selector. Selectors are fine, right? Bardeen does a real good job with getting those automatically. But as we can analyze the layout, there are much better ways to get this title. And yeah, let's focus on this class. So I'm going to use square brackets, class, and asterisk sign. This way we can search for the substring. You see, there is a string like text display, blah blah blah. Let me actually find it. Yeah, we're searching for the substring, and this way we can validate the important part of the value. For example, what I'm trying to say is that we don't need this text display, medium, bold, right? It's all that unrelated information. What we're caring about is summary title or just title. Yeah, we can I prefer to keep the summary title. So we can save, and here is custom selector that will hold like for much longer, yet it still gets us important information. Let's get the company image, right? Like company. Actually, I would like to call it logo, and we can see in inspector tools that we can. So images are kind of easy. We can get them through the img tag, right? But there's a lot of unrelated information, so we can specify the page beginning, so we don't get any metadata, right? Only what is important. And there is the main element. It's usually a good practice to set like main element. A lot of websites use this element to set like the main content of the page, right? So we're going to use main and then img. Oh, this way we're getting the cover. But let me get straight. Blah blah blah. Okay. So okay, I'm not going to spend much time on it. Let's take maybe like industry of the page, right? So it calls software development. We can call it like industry. So, and what we can get is using this selector, right? It's basically the same logic. We're using the class, the asterisk sign, which allows us to search by the substring, and then we pass the class value of these div elements. As you can see, there is like h1 tag, p tag, and div tag. But we're interested in the div tag, which has like summary info list, and we need to get the first element out of this. The first one is using the space. As Manuel mentioned before, space is like the descendant, right? And the first descendant after this div with this summary info list is our software development elements. As you can see, yeah, it selects this. So let's pass it. The industry, let's edit the selectors. Yeah, boom. Here it goes. Okay, let's maybe get the location, right? So the way we can get the location is pretty much the similar. We're going to use the same basement, right? But yeah, but we will edit it a bit. So we are not getting the first descendants after discard, but rather we are getting the first sibling of these descendants, right? And get the first div of it. So you see, this like the summary info list. There's the location. There's a location, and we need a sibling of it. We can access the sibling with the plus sign. By the way, all the information about those quick tips are in our slides. So if you can easily go back to them, right? So after accessing the sibling, we need to get the first descendant, and it's by using the space again. So we get it, and so let's replace. Boom. So pretty neat. And let's get the headline. Actually, it's like important information about like what's the company like call itself, and etc. Headline, right? This is very easy. We can also get the card summary title here as well, right? But we are going to use plus sign to find a sibling, right? And then paste p as a paragraph. So this way we are getting the first sibling of the h1 element that contains class with the value of summary title. So this way we're getting the headline. let's edit this, and yeah, here we go. So that's an example of like a small demo how you can build a model. The process is yeah.
So in this case, we were able to, just to wrap up, you were able to get reliable selectors and like extract the information reliably for the location, the industry, the company logo, and the company name. So even though this took, I don't know, like 10 minutes, this guarantees that every time you run this scraper, whether you run it on one case or if you run it on 1,000, every time you will get the same information and it'll work every time, because you made kind of the selectors that are able to extract that information reliably every time. Now, for instance, if what could be something on a LinkedIn, is there something on a LinkedIn company that might vary? For instance, the labels or the description. If the layout changes inside Bardeen, then you might not be able to get that information every time. So this is kind of the process, and you can also check out the resources, the hacks that we've provided for you to hop into this CSS learn curve and like how you can build selectors. You don't need to learn so much about coding. It's specific on like how you can identify these selectors to improve your scrapers. Can we see this in action? Like, can you run this just to see the result?
Yeah, sure. Let's close the developer tools and let's save the model. Yeah, I'll copy this. Yeah, here we go. And we're creating a new playbook. It's just like a playbook from scratch that contains only one action as a scrape data on active tab. As you can see, yeah, that's like the name of the model I just created. Let's click on done. And boom, here you go. All the information: company name, Bardeen, company logo, it extracts the logo, industry, location, headline, all that are in place. And yeah, we also can run this on a different company. I don't have them.
Awesome. No, I think that's a great demo. Thank you so much, Danny. Can you? We had multiple comments on people asking like, what is the best way for me to learn? Like, what are some resources? Can you share some of these?
Yeah, sure. So those presentations, well, there were some of the resources Manuel mentioned. Those are references to the MDN website. Yeah, it's specialized on the web development. It also contains deep knowledge into like HTML and CSS, but I would personally recommend you to check out free open course from Khan Academy. I'm sure a lot of you guys know this website is like free and very like user friendly. So this website will this actually course will lead you to the it'll help you to get a better understanding of what's HTML, what's CSS, right? How the web works, how the page works, what's the anatomy of it, right? And the second one is the list of selectors, useful ones, which wasn't mentioned before. From the website, CSS Tricks is also a very cool website. I'm recommend you a lot. So yeah, there's like attribute, like dir, maybe Facebook uses dir a lot, and etc. First of type, first child, all the stuff, and yeah, you can take it, you can practice. So pick any website, literally, and set your goal to can I scrape this thing or that thing, and try to build your own using those resources. And yeah.
Awesome. And I know this path seems hard, so we want to help you so you are able to go through this and have some of our support. So we have an invitation for you. If you're heading into this, we will help you build your scrapers. So literally, just share your scraper. What are the fields that you want to get? Like, share your exact URL. For instance, I want to scrape this Crunchbase page, and I want to extract this fields, and we will be able to help you get these selectors. With one condition: try to build it yourself, right? Actually try to build a scraper yourself. And if you run into an issue, like something that you weren't able to get reliably, or that runs into one of these limitations that we saw today, share that in our community. We have a very active Bardeen community. And in this conversation, you will be able to simply share, and we will do the work. We will be kind of consultants for you for free, and we will get those selectors for your scraper. So if you're trying to build a growth strategy, if you're trying to get leads, if you're trying to scrape LinkedIn, Crunchbase, I don't know, PitchBook, whatever website you're trying to get, this is a great timing for you, because you will get our help for building that. So, and apart from that, even a better offer is that we have a bit of a prize and a contest involved. So, can we go into it? Yeah.
Sure. Here we go.
All right. So we have contest. Who's going to be the next scraper expert? We're constantly looking for those scraper experts, those pro users. We even have an ambassador program. And these are users that have really, really valuable superpowers to scrape data from the web, to build automations that go beyond, and you can integrate them into systems that are monetizable. So we're looking for people that want to get into this learning curve. So here's the contest, and here's the invitation. You will be able to practice your skills, become a Bardeen ambassador, and maybe even support other users while you learn to do this. So we will give 300 credits, Bardeen credits, and these are usually paid, and these are credits that you can use to run pro automations inside Bardeen, to anyone who shares this story and their scraping automation. So like share the playbook, share the story and the use case that you're trying to do. So you can make a LinkedIn post, you can share it at our community showcase, you can share a TikTok, or maybe a tweet, and we will be able to give you the credits. So the only thing is, we will need you to reach out inside our community. So you can share it inside the community showcase, or you can share it in the social media, but then share the link in our showcase, like share the link with us, so we're able to actually give you those credits. We will do that for the next month. So until we're at September 14, so the next month at October 14, that's the end of the contest. So give it a shot. Now you have a bit of an incentive, because with Bardeen credits, you will not only be able to use the scraper, but you will be able to use pro automations. You will be able to use OpenAI integration, Salesforce, HubSpot, so many other valuable features from Bardeen. All right. So who's in? I think we have Jess here that wants to participate. And okay, Sean says that the link of the community isn't working. So we will share the accurate link. In any case, you have the slides for the event, and we will update the links. But the link to the community announcement, where you can see the information related to this event, is this one. Let me share it again. Share it on the comments. All right, so let's head into just the last section. And thank you everyone for your patience, for basically heading into this learn curve. And we have an announcement that we're going to have a next session. We're going to have session number 2, where we will dive into a bit more deep scraping, CSS, and some other CSS techniques and XPath techniques. Mambel, what can we expect from the next session? And you can already register for the next session. And what I would recommend is for you to start practicing. So in the next session, you already have some skills. Mambel, what can we expect?
Oh, so yeah, as mentioned, we have mostly concentrated on the single page scraping. The next session, we will look into have a deep dive into list scraping, which is essential for diving into deep scraping. And I noticed, like many people in the chat, realize that we have the toggle for XPath. So yeah, we either will be able to squeeze the XPath into that session, or we have a separate one. So yeah, there is more ways how we can get like data from the web. So yeah, that's what we'll be doing next one.
Awesome. So now, if there's any questions that people had during the event, you can drop them into the comments. We also have some stared questions that we would like to address. So Adit had here a question that I think it could be interesting if Mambel knows the answer. So sometimes two text boxes show up separately, but they get picked up together because it's a bunch of spans. How to tackle that? Do you know what he means?
Oh yeah, I think this is related to the fact that sometimes they are you're picking the element, but it also has some elements inside. In that case, let's say you're picking a div and it's like multiple spans inside next to each other. You're creating another selector that is nested. So for example, with a separated with a space. So you're going to the div, then to the span that you are interested in. So this can be one way of doing that.
Awesome. Another question, Gabrielle, how can I contact you regarding onboarding? So we don't do any custom onboardings as of right now, but we do have a very active community at bardeen.community.ai, and we have thousands of members there where you can engage, you can ask your questions, you can go through the learn curve. We also have really good getting started tutorials, and the app itself has a getting started section with tutorials. But if you have a particular company case or you would like to discuss it with us, maybe we can settle a custom onboarding. We do it in certain cases. Yeah, so feel free to reach out. We also have here a question, interesting question from Vincent. Can you explain product roadmap for Bardeen using AI in the future? Would you like to tackle that? Should I tackle it?
Yeah.
All right. So some of my thoughts, and maybe you can complement. So Bardeen has AI in the core right now, like a core for features. You can find AI in so many places inside Bardeen. So not only do we use it for scraping, but you can also find OpenAI actions inside your builders that allow you to integrate, for instance, data with the scraper. So you can scrape data, analyze it with AI, generate a message for Slack, for instance. We have multiple OpenAI commands inside Bardeen. We also have a very important feature called the magic box. So whenever you go inside Bardeen, you will find a search box, right? And if you type what you want and you prompt it like you would prompt ChatGPT, like, hey, I want an automation that gets a list of links from a Google Sheets, then scrapes them using LinkedIn and using a LinkedIn scraper model, and then saves the result to Google Sheets, then that should create you a draft. So we have a magical feature called Magic Box, right? That converts text to automation. So if you are kind of familiar with how Bardeen actions are called, it's going to be very easy for you to prompt automations into reality with just the text. We also have other AI features coming up. We have a classifier, and we have already ongoing demos for this, that an AI classifier to get data from, for instance, a list, and then classify all those. For instance, let's say you're getting leads for your company and you want to classify them as hot leads, as cold, or you want to classify how relevant they are for your company. You can build your own custom classifier and create kind of tags for you to label that information. That is useful in so many scenarios like support, that you can classify requests by urgency, and so many other cases. That is something that we will have updates on soon. And remember, we do have release notes where we share kind of product updates at bardeen.ai/release notes. And you can also see what is coming up in the product. We also have the community, and some of our pro users have access to demo features. So become an active member of the community, and you will probably be able to see these AI features before anyone else. All right. When is it advisable to override and use XPath instead of CSS selector? I think that is a really relevant question here.
Right, absolutely. We will definitely have a deep diver in the next session, but I can quickly tackle this one. So yeah, one of the biggest advantages of the XPath over the CSS, I would say, because with XPath you can also search for the actual text content, like the text inside of that divs or spans. So similar way how we were searching for text inside of the attribute, you can look into actual text. So it's easier to locate element, making search on the page based on the text you see.
Awesome. Okay, we will dive into that in the next session, so it's clear. And finally, we have a really good idea from Sean here on what about having a Bardeen AI copilot that writes the code for the selector based on the user pointing to the element. Wow. Okay, he's revealing our secrets just right up. So we are working on that. We are working on that actually, and it's going to be an exciting feature. So we're basically looking for a way, and we already have some demos on how you can kind of record your actions and kind of record. I want to get this, and I want to get this from the website. I want you to get copy this image and paste it on Google Sheet and copy this and do this. And Bardeen should be able to kind of follow those actions and then create the scraper and create all the actions needed for that automation. That is one very particular and powerful feature. And we have another one that is the Bardeen Web Agent, where you will be able to simply prompt what you want Bardeen to do inside a page. Like, I want you to get this information from LinkedIn and then save it into Google Sheets, and then it'll do that, and it can work over multiple different types of pages. So it uses AI to understand the page and kind of get those fields. So you can apply that to many different types of pages, and that is kind of alternative ways to extract information that do not even involve the scraper. And there's other, like we have, for instance, inside Bardeen, we also have a command to get table with AI. So if you get the HTML of that page and then you process it through this action, it'll be able to build a table with AI. So there's other alternatives to scraping inside Bardeen too. So if one case doesn't work particularly well with scraping, you can also explore other options on how to extract data from the web. Some spoilers there with Sean's only from the users that stayed here. All right. So let me just wrap up here saying that we appreciate so much your participation, and thank you so much to Manvel. Thank you so much to Danny for taking the time for preparing these resources. I know this learning curve is not the easiest for non-technical users, but I am really excited to see what comes out of this and how Bardeen users can leverage these basic principles of coding to make their Bardeen scraper automations much more powerful. And remember, these are skills that you can leverage, that you can improve your own scrapers, that you can monetize scrapers, you can help other users, and maybe even build a business upon this. So thank you so much for participating and sticking around. And thank you so much, Sean, Oliver. I think it's a great way to say goodbye. Thank you so much.